Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Randy Burke.
Here.
Commissioner Darren Indovina.
Here.
Commissioner Ken Gaspar.
Here. Will everyone rise as you are able for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I want to welcome everyone to, this is a working meeting out at the airport. The theme for tonight is economic development. And as if you've seen on the agenda, we're going to talk about the TIF, we're going to talk about the airport, and we're also going to talk about a hotel study. And to help us do that is Mr. Steve Etcher, and he's our consultant on economic development. And Steve, if you could go ahead and introduce yourself.
Happy to, and I'll just stand. I'm kind of tethered to this, so if
Okay.
this is a good location for everybody, you can look at that, please, not me. It's much prettier. My name is Steve Etcher. I've had the opportunity and the privilege of working with the city of Monett now for more than a decade to help them drive their economic development agenda within the community. And there's a lot of history that can go into that, but in the essence of time tonight, really what I want to focus on are some of the key initiatives as we're moving forward. And the one that the mayor asked me to talk about first was the TIF 3. And TIF, just so you know, I'll give you kind of a prelude of what a TIF actually is, and then where we're going to be using it. But a TIF, as the name would apply, tax increment financing is what that acronym stands for. It allows an entity to capture the incremental growth in tax revenue caused by economic growth to fund certain levels of development. It is not a tax abatement program, it is a tax capture program is the best way to describe it. Within a tax increment financing, really what it is you identify a geography that meets the qualifiers. Typically there are areas that are underdeveloped, underutilized, or as the term is, blighted. Once you have that geography identified, you can then put a TIF district in place that captures one of two types of taxes. One is economic growth taxes, and the other one is economic activity taxes. In TIF 3, and the city of Monett had two TIFs prior, in TIF 3, we actually have it divided into two development areas. Redevelopment Area 1, Redevelopment Area 2. In Redevelopment Area number 1, the intent will be to capture the economic growth increment that would come from property taxes. That's because we're going to be using the proceeds to develop Lowe's Lane, to finish paving it to the end of the streets, putting in some storm drainage, etc. Public infrastructure in essence. But we're going to be able to capture that from property tax growth on any new investments that would come along there. Redevelopment Area number 2, which would be futuristic, will likely utilize economic activity taxes to fund those costs. And that would typically be capturing sales tax or a hotel tax or a specialty tax that's placed within a certain geography. So that's what a TIF does. It allows you to fund certain activities around development. And in this particular case, we're going to be funding public infrastructure. One of the reasons why we're advancing this project, let me go back, is to fund Lowe's Lane. The city applied for and got some money from the Missouri Department of Transportation under what's called the Governor's Cost Share Program. And it requires them to put so much local monies into that project to capture that. And the city's obligation to get the money from MoDOT is about $900,000. I'm going to round it just for the sake of clarity. But with that, we can leverage, $675,000 out of MoDOT to make those expansions. So that's why we are considering a TIF, to allow the city to go ahead and invest in that development as cost share, but then repay themselves, in essence, from the growth that will occur resulting from that project.
Now, Steve, is there a timeline on which we must use this MoDOT money?
By the end of 2026, it has to
Okay.
be spent because it is ARPA money, or funding that came from the American Rescue Plan Act. So it does have an obligation of 12/31 of 26, which means we really need to be building this in 2025, just to
Okay.
give ourselves plenty of latitude. We can always go down to the wire, but it's Kevin Sprinkle has it emotionally designed. MoDOT, we just have to review the final plans, and it can be actually put out for bid and go towards construction. So we can actually advance that anytime the city gives the green light, and the TIF can actually catch up to that if we need to. But that's why we're looking at the TIF. Any questions on TIF before? Oh, I got one more slide, sorry. One of the questions that came up is if the city has an obligation of $900,000, what are we looking at? What do we have to have in terms of economic growth to recapture those funds? And I just use a 20-year planning horizon. You can actually go longer. And I did it on two different scenarios. One is if you don't pay yourself any interest, and one if you paid yourself 5% interest. But if you did scenario one, which is no carrying cost, you would need to increase the assessed value by $930,000 of commercial assessment, which means, or industrial assessment, which means you'd have to have something less than a $3 million investment that would generate that incremental growth sufficient enough to pay back this bond in 20 years, or pay back the city. You're not going to actually use your bonds, you just pay back your reserves over 20 years. So if you get an investment, in there of $10 million, you can get that recaptured in 6 to 7 years. So the quicker you get investments, the quicker you can pay that back. But if you had only a $3 million investment, it would pay itself back within a 20-year horizon. With what's planned in the new expanded area of redevelopment area number 1, I don't believe you'll have any problem meeting that minimum investment the day the TIF's created. With what's going on the east side of Lowe's Lane. So that's kind of how the numbers work out. Does that make sense? Any questions from the city or
any questions from
the audience?
Be more specific as what investment you're talking about, because this is all nebulous to most of us.
Okay. So what we are looking to do is extend the paved portion of Lowe's Lane from its current end south to the end of the property. Along there, we will put storm drains as well to handle any storm water that's generated in that entire industrial park and along that roadway.
But you talked about raising the assessed value.
Yeah.
Tell us how you're going to do that.
Any company that comes in and invests in that industrial area, that industrial park, will add value to the city's assessed value. $3 million of any investment, whether that's
It's new development in the TIF zone.
any development within that TIF zone.
But it's so far, you're okay. They're going to come. We're going to build it. They're going to come. I'm not convinced.
Okay, I'm not sure I'm at liberty to say what's going on the
We'll
east
just
side.
say you've got somebody that you've signed and have made commitments.
There are multiple projects that have made commitments.
Okay,
Yes.
that's more than we heard.
Okay.
I think it's due to non-disclosures that they can't speak.
Projects are highly confidential.
Yeah, well, that's
typically, and so you
okay.
have to
I just want to hear you
Yeah.
tell me that you've actually got something
Multiples.
and you're not just telling us they will come and it's
Correct. We're responding to a specific need.
great.
Good question. Thank you.
I'm curious, what happens to the other taxing districts? Because obviously there's overlapping taxing districts. So what happens with those other taxing districts?
They are a part of it. The first step the city will have to do is create a tax commission for TIF 3. They've had tax commissions in the past.
Yeah, we're going to get to that, Dave, and I think I'll answer your question.
But that's how they're represented, is on and here, the city is represented by a law firm called Gilmore and Bell. David Martin is your lead attorney, and he's provided this guidance to the city of who they need to appoint on a TIF commission to oversee TIF 3. And it does represent the city, the county, the school district, and other taxing jurisdictions. And again, this is not an abatement, this is not a tax rollback. Whatever revenue is currently being generated in an area for taxing jurisdictions remains. We only capture the incremental increase. Okay?
Yeah, well, it's hard for me to see what slide you're on.
It's the one, it was in the packet I sent you earlier this week. It's called
Yeah,
TIF Commission.
heading.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, I got you. I'm in sync.
So to really move forward with both projects, the Lowe's Lane improvement, the city just has to give the green light to the engineer that they're good for the local match, and we can get that out to bid. To move forward with the TIF 3 authorization, they just have to appoint the TIF commission. The city's already completed the blight study. The city already has the TIF plan put in place by Gilmore and Bell, so now it's just a matter of putting the governance in place.
Now, the TIF plan that'll come from Gilmore and Bell.
Correct.
What are the elements of that?
Honestly, the bulk of it is the justification, which is the blight study. So Steadfast City was your consultant who did the blight study. determining your eligibility to even include this property in a TIF. So that'll be part of the narrative, the cost benefit analysis, that if we make this investment, here's the economic
Good.
projections on what the city will gain. That's your plan.
Now, I know they have the blight study. Is there any reason, I mean, I've read the blight study. I don't see any reason that it wouldn't be a blighted area. Is that, I mean, based on what my review?
Yeah, that was the determination by the consultant, that it is both an underdeveloped and an underutilized piece of property, therefore determining as an economic blight.
Okay,
So you only need one justification, you actually have two really strong ones.
okay, thank you.
So I don't see any reason, and it's not like anybody has to prove it. The TIP commission and the city approved the TIP plan. There's nobody else. The reason you need to make sure all of your ducks are in a row, and it is done well, the commission's right, the blighted study is right, is because if it is ever legally challenged, was this truly a TIP? Did you have the authority to come in and capture that increment? You have a legal basis on which to stand.
Okay, good.
And I'm not the attorney, I'm not providing you legal advice.
I understand.
You're more embellished, but that's why you do a fully blown, detailed blight study and TIP plan, is to defend yourself in court if for any reason it gets challenged.
Okay, good.
I would not anticipate that. The community seems to work well together, so I don't see that being problematic. So that's probably more than anybody ever wanted to know about TIPs, and I apologize.
You got it.
Yeah,
No,
I got it. Thank you.
It's more than I knew, and I appreciate it.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right. We move on to the next topic about economic diversification as it relates to the airport.
Well, the TIF commission,
Yeah.
okay, so it looks like this is where, okay, we appoint 6 members to, and I'm assuming, do we choose the, whoever heads that?
Yeah,
Okay.
you name them. Your attorney actually provides some good guidance. He says, if possible, use an existing committee. If you got an economic development committee, that's a really good basis from which. If you got a downtown committee, if you got somebody that's involved in community redevelopment, that committee, bring those people in because they have a passion for community improvement.
Okay, and this is, we had 2 members from the affected county.
Yep,
That's all Berry, okay.
it's all there.
School board,
Yep.
another tax, okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
And you get to appoint the 6, you have to send a notice to the other entities to appoint their own.
All right. Where are we at? What slide are we on?
You just want to know if we're ready to move to the next
Yeah.
subject.
Let's move to the next subject.
All right, we're gonna skip that. So, just kind of a little back information for the audience. One of the things that we've been working with the City of Monett and the Monett Economic Development Partnership about is economic resilience. How do we make sure that we continue to grow a strong local economy in a manner that does 2 things? 1, leverages your unique assets, and 2, doesn't compete with your existing industries. How do you grow without causing growing pains, essentially? And so we've been looking at that, and over time, we've really zeroed in on 2 industry sectors that we think make incredible sense for the City of Monett to pursue, explore, consider, whatever term you want to put on that. The first is around aircraft modernization and autonomous aircraft manufacturing. What am I talking about? There are thousands, hundreds of thousands of aircraft out there that have been built more than 50 years ago that need modernization. They need the latest automatics, the latest electronics in them, the latest upgrades. There's an entire industry sector being grown around doing that. Taking old aircraft, we're not building new ones, but let's take the ones we have and make them sufficient. And that's not all within the defense industry. It's in private aircraft as well. What we're finding is they are having a hard time getting a foothold in certain regions because the assets aren't there to support that. What they need is direct runway access with manufacturing capabilities. As you look at this asset, which is an incredible asset for this community, I see an opportunity to do that, to provide manufacturing and remanufacturing facilities adjacent to the apron, adjacent to the taxiway, so as they bring craft in and take craft out, they've got that ease of access and it won't necessarily conflict with the rest of the air travel. The other reason this makes a lot of sense is the industry itself is looking for a talent pipeline to service that. They're not finding that in the areas that you typically find more urbanization, more assets like that. So I think there's a really good opportunity for the ingenuity of rural America to help them solve this problem. So much so that OTC is actually launching a program in 2025 to focus on those trades. We believe that is an opportunity for Confluence to move forward. They probably wouldn't do a lot of this at the Springfield Airport. That's not what their bailiwick is. That's not what their focus is. This would be an ideal location to drive that type of industry exploration and growth. The second one is around autonomous aircraft manufacturing. And I'm not talking necessarily about autonomous planes, although that could be the case, but drone manufacturing, drone testing, drone research. That is currently occurring in a lot of major metropolitan areas. In fact, I was in San Antonio a year ago, which is one of the largest areas where they're testing and researching and building autonomous aircraft. And they're getting an enormous amount of pressure to move because they feel like they're too close to an urbanized core. And so if they want to continue to grow and expand their capabilities in autonomous aircraft, they want them out of the city. And I'm saying, kick them out. We'll take them. We've got lots of land around here. I mean, obviously you never want a problem to happen. But if you do, you've got an area here that's very sparsely populated. Your chances of having a significant event because of a malfunction or failure as you're testing autonomous aircraft is going to be far less problematic here than in downtown San Antonio or at an air base in San Antonio. So we think there's an opportunity there. And as we've looked at the industry, make sure we've got this in here. I've got so many in here, I'm sorry. As we've looked at the industry and where they cluster, and I kept this slide up because I didn't think I was going to get that detail tonight. There's actually, within the central part of the United States, a lot of talent in that area. There's actually a lot of aerospace industries from St. Louis down through Wichita, into Oklahoma, Dallas. There's opportunities. It's not like we're trying to bring something in that doesn't exist. It exists. That talent is in the general area. We just need to concentrate them on this opportunity.
Have we gone into detail? Because I'm assuming this would be here at the airport. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So the infrastructure would be utility, of course, the structure itself, some utilities, power as well.
Yeah, and we'd have to plan that. You know, you've got the asset. Now we've figured how do we leverage it. And I think the first thing I would do is say, okay, where would we put a 30 or 60,000 square foot manufacturing facility? And maybe it's not on the airport property. Maybe it's on adjacent properties that we can extend access to. But that's the first thing I'd start, is come with a master plan of where we could accommodate it. Secondly, I'd take a thorough analysis of your public infrastructure. Can we accommodate them from an electric standpoint, from a water standpoint, from a sewer standpoint? And if not, let's develop some concepts. What would it take to service that? Those are not unattainable goals. We can easily build more electric, we can build water systems, we can extend sewer systems. There's a lot of things that we can do. We just have to come up with a plan. And we don't have to do the build it and they will come scenario. We can actually start putting it out there. This is the industry sector we are trying to grow. And as companies begin to pursue and locate here, we'll grow the infrastructure in tandem with them. So it's not like you've got a bet on a come. You just have to be ready to invest as the private sector is prepared to invest in this community as well. And you can do those in parallel paths.
How many RFPs does the state receive that fit that criteria?
We see, so it's a great question. You obviously know what you're talking about with an RFP. So in the state of Missouri, the way they do business attraction for new businesses is they work with an organization called the Missouri Partnership. And anytime there's an industry looking to come to Missouri, they connect with the Missouri Partnership. And I would say we're running between 12 and 15 aerospace direct runway access leads per year.
Okay.
That's not a huge amount, but that's 12 to 15 that we have no response for.
Now, with that being said, what is the criteria or what is the basis that they're looking whenever they're doing the site selection?
Normally, it's access to the aerospace assets. Can we get to the runway, how close it is? One of the things that kick out many of the competing sites in the state of Missouri is they're in a floodplain. And most industry will not build in a floodplain. I don't think we have that problem here. Or if you do, we better be harvesting gopher wood very, very quickly. So that's usually a big kick. A lot of them is also is they don't have the abilities to get them to public utilities. They're just too remote. Access to talent is a very critical driver as well. But with what you've got in a 200-mile radius, within a 100-mile radius, You can easily argue that point. Now, the steps forward, how do you respond to an RFP as it comes out, is to say, this is something we're going to focus on, really put together a information packet specifically targeted to this industry. So when the Missouri Partnership has a lead, they have something to pitch to them.
Well, it's also, I mean, if that's the gear and the route that the city's gonna go, we need to make sure that, okay, like, do we meet the generic criteria to be able to respond to an RFP and actually get interest to get a site tour?
Right.
And that's where it's like, okay, like, do we?
Well, I think we work with our partners to get to that point. So, the city of Monett does not have a robust economic development budget. You're not gonna spend $100,000 a year to go out there and market Monett to aerospace clients. What you do is you partner with your regional partners, which is your Springfield area Chamber of Commerce, which handles the entire Southwest. You work then with the Missouri Partnership and say, here's what we've got. They will market your community. All we've got to give them is the information.
Yeah, they'll go to trade events and do it all.
They'll do it all, yeah. You just have to represent the state well. When that company says, we actually have a project, we immediately respond with the information packet. We get them on site. I am a firm believer, once I get somebody on site, we can win this deal. They've got to see, they've got to feel, they've got to touch these assets to know that this community can accommodate them. And that's how we would do it.
Does the geographic location of Monett strengthen it? Because there's a whole lot of everything not too far from.
Right? It's a jewel, to be honest. I mean, everybody's like, oh, you're kind of remote because you're 10 miles off the interstate, you're 20 miles from Springfield,
Yeah, but you're 2 hours out of Tulsa. and
Exactly.
3 hours out of Kansas City and 2 hours out of Little Rock or wherever. There's so many.
Yep. It can definitely draw them from all those population centers. And we're not talking about drawing thousands of people.
Right.
You're drawing dozens, then hundreds. So it's just to be an industry cluster as we grow. And your location, I think, makes it incredibly convenient for that industry to take root here.
Coming back down to earth here, do you anticipate, you may not know the answer to this, do you anticipate we need to extend the runway or the taxiway for this type of facility?
And I am not an aviation expert. I'm an
Well,
economic
we
developer. I
got
don't believe so.
6,000 feet of runway,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Okay.
6,000 feet. There's 32 airports in the state of Missouri with 5,000-foot runways or longer. 33. So it's not a huge portion. I think you can accommodate most of what we would be targeting with the 6,000 foot. Let's say you get an industry in here that's like, oh, we really want a 10,000 square foot runway, we want 100 foot wide. Okay, give me a timeline. When do you need that by? We can solve that problem. It just takes time. Time and money. We can solve it. We don't have to have it up front.
Now, how would we go about developing this master plan? I like it. I like the master plan, but how would we go about doing that as a city council?
So my approach to planning, for what it's worth, is keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. If you know that economic development has an opportunity to grow in this area, either identify area adjacent to the city-owned land that we can accommodate a 30 to 60,000 square foot manufacturing facility, or figure out in the current footprint, where can we put a 30 to 60,000 square foot building without interfering with the remainder of the operations.
But that's something to work through the airport.
Airport
board.
committee should be able
Agreed.
to give you ideas on that. That's all
Okay.
you need to do, in my opinion, to start.
Yep. Okay.
I guess that feeds into kind of my question where I was at, like, okay, these previous RFPs, how well does Monett fit the previous, requests on those and that criteria? Like, would those have been something that would have worked? Do we have the infrastructure set up, or would it have matched? You know what I mean? So that way, like, if you're only getting, the state's only getting 12 to 15 per year, and we only hit the criteria on 20% of that, then, it's a hard target to hit.
It is a hard target to hit. I think you would have a competitive application, on the ones that I recall over the last year, you would have had a competitive application on all but one.
Okay. That's a safe answer.
And that's pretty good. There's just nothing else out there. If you had a plan, if you said, yeah, we can put you a 60,000 square foot building up right here with direct runway access.
So how many of those RFPs were fulfilled?
In the state of Missouri?
Yes.
One.
Okay.
You might have heard of the company called Boeing. You're not going to land at Boeing.
Well, but I mean, the number that were landed really makes a difference when it sounds promising. Well, we'd qualify for all but one of them.
You'd have competed for them. Right now, Missouri does not compete well because they don't have the physical assets
Yes.
to be attractive to the market. I'm saying,
And we got the airport to do that.
like, you've got the asset.
With the airport, OTC, and then if Monett could do a jet program to feed into OTC and funnel it a little longer, just help the whole system, it looks more attractive.
And you've got a really, just look out the window, you've got an incredibly strong presence in aviation already.
Yeah.
Most communities of this size with any airport close to this, you look around it and all you see are cornfields and pastures. There's no presence like this there. That's why I believe once you start presenting Monett as an option, they will find it to be very.
I don't think there's any opposition to any of what we're talking about. I know the board and Jaden, our airport manager, are well equipped to address these kinds of things. So I think that's I'll speak for myself, that's the direction from the council, from me, and hopes to the board and to Jaden, as far as that's my intent for them, is to seek out those opportunities. So.
Now, on something like that, we would have to engage with the county commissioner to help with taxes in order to.
I just don't think we're going to solve it
You
here
know,
tonight.
It is such a competitive industry, it's not going to be driven by incentives. Incentives will be an important part of it. It's going to be driven by how successful can that venture be. The incentives is just the cream of, the whipped cream on top. That's all it is. And we can cover that when we get to it. But your price point will be very competitive compared to any other place. So what do you incentivize? And typically, I use incentives only to create a level playing field. Well, to me, you're below level already because your price is going to be far lower than anything else in this industry. So you're already competitive. You don't have to incentivize that if you can cover the cost of development. And the development, I mean the infrastructure.
Yeah.
And I think we can cure that.
Now, since we've been talking about RFPs for about 15 minutes, what exact requests for?
There are
Proposal,
requests
okay.
for proposals or requests for information.
Okay,
That is how companies
That's
identify potential communities to add new assets.
Okay.
Typically, they'll just send it out to the state will filter it down to whoever matches that criteria, whatever municipality does. And then after that, if you fill out, your proposal, you type it up, you send it in. If they like it, then they'll contact you, and a couple months later, you have a site tour. The site tour, that's where the fun happens.
And we work with the Missouri Partnership daily. I mean, that's
Good.
we talk with. And the reason we like this as a team is, one, it does not compete against the workforce strains of any of your other employers. None have this skill set that they're hiring for. And two, it might actually strengthen the opportunities for some of your businesses that are very reliant on aviation in your community. It just brings more critical mass.
Very good. Thank you.
That was what we've been talking about.
Interesting.
Thank you. And do you want to talk about the hotel study?
I can, to some degree. So, as we've been meeting with the existing businesses within your community, one of the pressing needs that we continue to hear is a need for a business class hotel. And what we have done over the years is try to identify investors to come into the community. And we had an opportunity pre-COVID that looked like it's plausible. Then COVID hit and the entire hospitality industry got turned on its nose. But the beauty out of that is the product that the hotel industry was building shifted to meet the current market. Instead of building 120 and 160 bed units, they're now building 60 to 80 really nice business class units. Far more attainable for a community that's a little bit smaller, such as Monett. So CBRE has recently conducted both a market study and a feasibility study for a business class hotel. And the results are what I would call favorable. We're not there yet, but they're favorable. Basically, they're saying, yes, you can support it, but to get there, we've got to figure out the pricing point just a little bit better to get the right brand we want in here, and we've got to kind of figure out the optimal location. What's interesting is they presented different perspectives than I even thought of. And I'm an outsider to your community, so I thought I had the best perspective. But they pointed out some things that were really unique in terms of drivers to that hotel. But the long story short is, yeah, the community can support something like that if we can get the price to a point that an investor is going to come in here and take that risk. I know there's members in the community that have reached out to an investment group that's interested in that. We've actually reached out to one that we talked to before, And I've had a conversation with a second investment group this week that has interest as well. So now the goal is to get those investors into the community to see the real opportunity, but then also work with the city to figure out how do we address that price point.
That's actually an issue I ran into literally last week. So I deal with a lot of the state and federal employees, and we hosted 2 classes here last week where people traveled from as far away as Iowa to come to the class because of the offering. And one of the issues we run into is one of the reasons we can host at Monett is because we have a Super 8. It's a branded hotel, and they won't book a class into a place that doesn't have a branded hotel. Some of the federal classes that we could bring in, things like that would bring people from other regions in, they can only do that in places that have business class hotels. But I actually ran into some of our federal partners who were driving to and from Springfield, and it was because they were driving past our hotels to go to a business class hotel in Springfield and driving from Springfield to Cassville to do their work and going back every night. And I was like, well, we got two good motels in Monett. They're both very nice. They're very nice people. And they're like, yeah, but you know, we need this and this and this and this. And they're using government purchasing cards, and so and government is paying them by the hour, so they're more than happy to drive an extra hour to and from. So having a business class hotel, I think, just that little bitty piece, and it's a little piece of it, I understand, but I hear that issue come up with people I deal with on a fairly regular basis. I think that's a wonderful thing.
When I say business class hotel, I'm thinking, just so that you all have it, it's a Hilton, it's a Hyatt, or one of their,
You're using government purchase cards. When I travel, I stay at Hilton's almost exclusively because you know what you're getting, and it's a little more comfortable.
But why you do this is exactly what you just said. You have so many companies that have headquarter operations here in the community that they can't accommodate. You cannot afford to risk headquarter operations, and if we don't solve this, that's a risk. And as we look at your community, our primary objective is resiliency. How do we create an economy that is very strong to withstand any setbacks? Well, a headquarters leaving is an enormous setback. So we need to be proactive and solve this issue.
That would also help with the site tours whenever businesses come in, because they have somewhere to stay. And I mean, it's all hand in hand.
And if somebody flies into your airport, where are they going to stay? They're typically probably not booking the Motel 6 or the Super 8 or the Days Inn or whatever it is.
Very nice people, but if you're coming into the airport,
expectations.
There's an expectation, and if you're coming out here to buy an aircraft, even if it is refurbished, you're going to stay in a business class hotel.
You have so much to lose if we can't solve this. In my opinion.
You make comment here that what you're saying is 80-plus keys can be supported, and we currently have 102 in town. And I appreciate, I like to stay in upper class when I'm traveling on somebody else's dollar. I've done that in the past. But
the report said
what will the impact be on the existing
great
facilities?
question. And the full study, the city has copies of it, the chamber has copies of. It can support 79 more keys over and above what's currently placed in the market.
Okay.
Correct. It's not just, we're not doing economic displacement. We're doing economic development. Great question. Thank you very much.
Is there any discussion on the council? I think we want to move ahead with a business class hotel. I mean,
Well, we have been.
okay.
Yeah, I've been in contact with Steve and the chamber.
Okay. 2 new members here, so, okay, gotcha. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Very much. The one thing on the TIF discussion with the council is we know the way ahead with Gilmore and Bell to come up with a plan. Is there any reason that we can't start now to look for our 6 people that'll be on the commission? So we can do that in parallel with what's going on with Gilmore and Bell, and I think we ought to pursue that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, we still have to contact the other taxing agencies with that letter.
I understand, because they get the letter and they're going to appoint theirs, but I think we can go ahead with because our part of it, of the commission. Okay.
Question. You had a TIF commission with TIF 2. What's happened there? Did you just dissolve that when TIF 2 got paid off? You know those people.
Well, that's one of the things we'll talk about, because the recommendation there is use what you already have.
Right, right.
So that's going to be
See,
part
you've
of the
been-
decision
You've
making.
been talking like there is no TIF 2 and there's no TIF commission already.
Well,
You know,
I just
before
corrected
we-
myself. I got your impression there, but that's one of the things we're going to look at
Okay.
in establishing the commission. And as I recall, is there a requirement for whoever's on this commission from that? Do they have to live in the city limits, or
The attorneys provide some guidance on that. It is not
Okay.
a requisite.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, let's go to the, Kelly, could you read off the next item, please?
Discussion regarding the Monett Municipal Airport Advisory Board with Brian Hunter, Vice President Travel at Jack Henry and Associates.
Okay. Brian, you want the floor, or?
What direction would you like me to take this?
As far as, I want to make, here's what I want. I want us to work alongside you to develop this airport.
Okay.
And that, when I'm talking about it, I'm talking about the Airport Advisory Board.
Okay. Be glad to. I think where I'd kind of like to start off is that we've had a lot of great volunteers try to grow the airport for decades. And, you know, people like existing people that are on our board. First of all, I'll start off just introducing the people on our airport board right now. Mark Costley was there before I ever came to town working on the airport. A lot of you probably know him. He's a medical doctor here in town for a long time. AJ Ball, another pillar of our community, is on the board. Justin Richmond, who owns Elite Aviation down on the south side of the field, is on the airport board. Mike Wannell with Jack Henry is on the board, and myself as board chair. And so people have been interested in the things that Steve has been talking about for a long, long time, because they see that potential. And we couldn't agree more with, you know, kind of that long look and trying to attract people, users, industry, etc. to the Monett Airport. So for a long time we didn't have an airport board, and we worked with the city in collaboration with them. At least from a Jack Henry perspective, we worked with them because you know, again, going back to the fact that we know the possibilities that can come to this airport. So we worked with the city for a long time during the airport development. We worked with the length of the runway and just as simple things like, you know, we have 6,001 foot of runway. That's for databases. We have long sweep taxiways for future growth, bigger airplanes. We have the depth of the concrete. You know, all of those things are really, really important when you talk about future users. And a lot of times, the airport and the city don't know any of those things, so we've been trying to help them out for a long time. You know, we talked earlier about the fact that we have a 6,000 foot runway, but that's really not the thing that's going to attract those people. Of course, that's a big thing. That's the physical thing that people can see, but businesses need the ability and the functionality of an airport to get in and out of the runway in all weather conditions. And that is what is just incredibly unique about the planning that we did on the runway 5 to 10 years ago. We have an airport here that has an approach that allows you to fly an airplane down to 200 feet off the ground and a half-a-mile visibility with no other backup system, only by GPS. There's 6 other airports in the country that has that type of capability that gives us the same type of functionality as Springfield, Missouri, or Dallas, Texas. And so it allows a lot of functionality for businesses to use this field. The runway is a function of performance, and the airplane that you're operating in and out of this airport. So all of those things come to play.
Hey, Brian,
Yes,
what's the maximum weight aircraft you can put on the runway?
that's not a black and white question. It was designed for a certain amount of weight, which is basically a medium-sized airplane, but you can put up to a Gulfstream 5 in here at 100,000 pounds, as long as you don't do it every day. Yeah. So, so what we did is we coordinated with the City of Monett to start an airport board at the beginning of 2023. And so, over that time, I would love to think about and get to the point to where we could welcome the type of future things that you're looking at, Steve. And I think that's a great idea. But the airport board has been very focused from the very start of last year about, things that should have been done a long time ago, low-hanging fruit. And so just to give you a couple examples, when we were established, we started looking at the finances. We started looking at hangar rates. We found in the finances an immediate benefit of over $30,000 a year in just the expenses, in one expense line. That was really easy. We then did a look around the local areas to see if we're competitive on hangar rates and raised the hangar rates last year. We then incrementally raised them again this year. All of those things are a benefit to the finances of the City of Monett of over $50,000 easily. We've looked at open span hangars versus T-hanger ROIs to figure out, when we use the federal entitlement money that we have available to us right now, which type of hangar or which type of growth would maximize the amount of benefit financially to the airport. We knew that we needed an airport manager at that time. We came up with qualifications and responsibilities. We're looking at our airspace and making sure that all of our infrastructure isn't for naught by losing access to airspace around the airport. We built a long-term capital expenditure prioritization plan. We had a very successful airport dedication as well. We've been working on tenant welcome packages so that we have something along the lines of economic development that's ready to go. It's one thing to want people to show up. It's another thing to be ready for them when they show up and have an answer and have a direction and have a vision for them. We passed ordinances for buildings. We started creating marketable land with a local developer that is between a year ago and here recently, we've added about $100,000 worth of a benefit and more marketable land for us to build hangars or to entice somebody to come in and build their own hangar in these spots. So what we need going forward is to back that up with infrastructure. We developed a mission and a vision, something just very, very simple. We also developed a 1, 3-year, and 5-year strategic objectives and goals. We've applied for grants from the state and the federal government, improved our taxiway, acquired navigation easements, passed with the city council an agricultural spraying rules that so somebody doesn't come in and make a hazardous mess out of our airport. We work with the local GoCaps to improve our website. And we got the council to approve our comprehensive strategic plan, which is great. We've applied for a better AWAS system because ours is 20 years old. You can't get replacement parts and very hard to work on. And it's prone to failure at this point. And we've hired a new airport manager. So we've done a lot of things that are kind of low-hanging fruit at this point. And I think we've made a lot of, we've had a lot of accomplishments so far. But like the city council, you know, the people on the airport board, you know how much they make. They make almost as much as you all for all of their efforts. And I joke because that's obviously nothing that we make. So we're all interested. We've got a great board in the way of experience, in the way of an experience from our community, from our history. And so we've got all kinds of experience and dedicated people in our community that are contributing to this airport board. So as we've changed councils and brought on an airport manager, you know, what we want to do is we don't mind doing the work that we're doing right now. But we also don't, you know, we don't want to be pushed to the side. And so we want to effectively come up with some communication or some understanding, if you will, between the airport board, the airport manager, and the city council, so that we're all on the same page with our communication. So with all of our expertise, what we're asking for, and it's really not worth it to anybody on the board if we don't have this, but what we're asking for is that everything that comes to the city council or gets put on a city council agenda comes with a recommendation, up or down, recommendation from the airport board. And we would think that you would want that because of all the expertise that we bring from the community and from the industry. And we're willing to do the work if you all would agree to those communication guidelines, I guess.
That doesn't seem too hard. And just a recommendation, I don't think it's that hard. And it sounds like a lot of the things that you're saying, I see Steve over here shaking his head up and down. So there is no doubt that the Airport Advisory Board adds a great deal as we try in this airport. And I agree with what you've done in the past and what Jack Henry has done. We do have a crown jewel.
We do.
And we wouldn't have that without you guys, so I appreciate that.
I thank you for the whole board. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, a few things, maybe a couple of questions. So, all throughout your statement, you talked about all the things that the council had done positively for and with the board and for the facility. So I'm struggling to understand, because I'm also hearing that there's maybe a vacuum somewhere or something is missing related to communication. An asterisk in that is to say that, yes, we've had a council change. We've also lost a city administrator. We've lost a city clerk. We've lost a building inspector. I know that has nothing to do specifically with the airport, but there's been a lot of turmoil, to say the least, in City Hall. So focuses have been probably primarily there, right? I can speak for myself only to say that I supported the airport, the formation of the Airport Advisory Board, the document that we all have, the things that we approved, previous council and current council. And with the addition of the airport manager, I know that I personally have communication with him. Might be on a weekly basis, maybe every other week. It's probably more realistic. So I'm struggling to understand if there truly is a problem, or if you're seeing the potential of a problem.
We have had a problem in the fact that we have not had here recently what I just asked for. And so there's been communication that the board had no idea of. And I don't think that that's in your best interest.
Is that in relation to that ordinance that we passed last council meeting?
It's in relationship to several items. And so my intent with this tonight, in my explanation, was to say all the things that you just said, which was, we've had a change. We've had a change in the council. We have a new airport manager. Let's all get on the same page with what we expect.
Okay. Yeah, I don't disagree, and I don't want anyone to misunderstand my statements and/or if there's any perception of a tone, it's not. But our airport manager is new within the last, forgive me, 4 months, 3 months. So there's a steep learning curve, and he has no defined manager, no leadership. So he's been doing the best he can in conjunction with the board, but also in conjunction with this council, and just trying to
And we
get a
have
firm
had-
footing.
And we have had every intention to help him
Yeah.
along the way.
Yeah, and I don't doubt that whatsoever. And again, I'm only going to speak for myself. Is I'm not preventing any of that, and I hope you know that. Right? So I am
Well,
fully supportive.
Is there any reason your recommendations couldn't be in writing so we all have the same thing? I mean, is there,
I'd be glad to.
Yeah.
I'll take the recommendation to the airport board, make sure we're all on the same page, and then submit it to your.
Yeah, and I think honestly, this is just my humble opinion, is that once we have a new city administrator, and there's a structure to City Hall, and a structure to the airport manager's leadership, those things will get
yeah,
structure
I agree.
in themselves.
I agree with that.
So I'm sorry. I'll just ask that there's some patience, some understanding. Obviously, the mayor and Commissioner Indovina can share their opinion, but
Ken, we were involved in hiring him. There's a lot of patience there and a lot
Yeah.
of willingness to work.
yeah, I don't doubt that. That's why I'm a little surprised, perplexed that there's a problem, knowing all the other extenuating circumstances. But I'm fully supportive of all that, fully supportive of the board, fully supportive of the airport manager, fully supportive of the decisions that we've made thus far, and very much look forward to whatever Steve or any other economic development opportunities arise for and at this airport. So,
I think, in all fairness, just for everybody, I think it works in the city's best interest if all committees from different sectors, different industries work together hand in hand in developing the city. Because the lack of communication, what we need to make sure that does not happen, that someone's left behind, or that a decision will affect some sector, some industry, and have a negative impact on them.
so I'll just also add, and that's fantastic, Mark, I agree. But I also add the fact that the three of us can't work together unless we're having a formal city council meeting or a formal city council workshop like this one here tonight. So even the communication amongst us struggles because we don't have a city administrator that we can funnel all of those things through. So I know we're all focused, and we have our HR director here as well. We're all focused on getting that next city administrator here on board. I understand that things can't wait, and they shouldn't wait, but if there's a perception of a lack of communication, it's not intentional, and that it's not out of a lack of desire to have better communication, because anybody who knows me knows I communicate, and I probably communicate too much like I'm doing right now. But the fact that the city administrator is not there to provide that bridge, because that's what Chris Weiner did for us, and that's what Dennis Pyle did for us. Right? That individual is the bridge, not only amongst the council, but between the council and the city departments. Because we can't just, any conversation I have with Jaden, obviously the mayor isn't having, and obviously Commissioner Indovina is not having. They have their own conversations. I'm sure they're very different.
They can't speak between each other. The
Correct.
two of them get together to speak.
That's correct.
It's
Yeah, I
technically
think-
conspired.
So there's
So
challenges
the easiest way
everywhere
around that is just expand
that
council.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
The easiest way around that is expand council, because right now, you can't have a substantive conversation or a productive conversation, because if two of you guys are speaking, you're already majority vote in council.
Yeah.
So therefore it's conspiring. So
I would love nothing more than to do that.
Expanded council, it would allow two people to gather together, have an actual constructive, quality conversation, and then being able to actually.
Excuse me.
And right now, it's almost impossible for you guys to plan anything because there's too little of you guys, and then you guys are technically conspiring if you do it because there's not enough of you guys, and you guys are making plots which carry majority vote.
I couldn't agree with you more. The only way we're going to do that is by petition and ballot, if you want to change anything else. So don't disagree with that.
Brian, I may be the only person who was still here when 1999, when Jerry Fulp dedicated the runway or some portion of the airport and declared this to be an air park where they could bring aviation businesses in. I'm not sure recall exactly when you got here, but
89.
Okay, so you were probably there at the
I was
time. Okay. So why hasn't any of this happened? It just seems that, he made this declaration, there was a plan, there was a vision. It seems like it's either a lack of marketing or a lack of a very specific type of focus to pursue what Steve has suggested, which the opportunity seems to have been there for a long time.
It has been. If you look at what has happened to Rogers Airport in the last 20 years, we were pretty much neck and neck. They are blowing it out of the water right now. And I believe that opportunity has been there the entire time, but I kind of spoke to it earlier. I spoke to the fact of being ready and ready and willing when there's an opportunity that presents itself, being able to go about that and show those opportunities that you're ready for them. And I think that's a unique difference. And I think those type of communities flourish, and the ones who don't.
And to your point earlier, with the board's assistance, and I'll look at all the board members that are here, with the board's assistance, we hired a person that I hope fit many, if not all, of the board's requirements or the needs of an airport manager. And I, just knowing him for the 3 months that he's been here like I do, I know he's eager, he's willing, he wants to learn, he wants to expand. I have no concern that we're not going to pursue all of those things and more that Steve and you all are looking for. I know certainly I am. This is not to pat myself on the back, but I connected Jaden and Steve to talk recently. So I see you're smiling, and you're probably assuming that that's part of the problem right there, is that I didn't communicate with the board. All I did was broker a connection, a relationship, just so they could introduce each other.
Well, I still think, we got a communication gap, but it is something that can be easily remedied. It doesn't sound like hard. And if we could do this, if we could get it in writing on what your recommendations are for specific issues, that's not too hard to do, is it, Brian?
It comes down to whether you value the direction and the expertise of the board. That's what it comes
I
down
do.
to.
I do.
And what I've said is I've pointed out what the expertise of the board is, and and that we will definitely we're part of the process to hire Jaden.
What?
And Jaden doesn't have a lot of experience, but the board does.
Right.
And the board can help you all with that as a bridge. And so that's why my request is specific in the fact that everything that comes to you, that it goes through an experienced and knowledgeable board. If it doesn't, you're really not getting the full mentoring or experience, I think, that you need.
So I'm going to ask, other than that one ordinance, what else went through council that did not go through the airport board? That's not an accusation. I'm honestly wanted to understand.
We have direction from the strategic plan. I also asked Jaden not to do something on the agenda. And we talked about this in an airport board meeting, and he went and did it anyway.
Okay, but knowing that Jaden is a department head of the city of Monett, who reports to, city administrator, now the council. So,
So what? If you want our expertise,
I
we're
do.
willing to give it to you. We're willing
do.
to work for you.
Yeah,
If you don't, then we're good. We'll,
that's not, that's not what I'm,
We-
it's not what I'm
we-
saying at
we
all.
do- We do, Brian.
It's not what I'm saying at all. But I think just the mere fact of Jaden carrying out his daily responsibilities as an employee of the city, he's well within his right to do that.
well, you said that there's a big gap in the bridge between you and the
For
board.
communication.
Yes, for communication.
Yeah.
And so what we'd like to do is we'd like to all get on the same page with that communication. And quite frankly, I don't understand why you don't see the benefit of that. And
Please
so-
don't misunderstand me, and don't state that I'm saying something other than what I'm not, what I am. I'm not saying that again, I can't speak for the others. I don't not value the board. But Jaden has a job to do, and
And you tell
I'm-
us how
I'm
you
expecting
think it
him-
should be done. Yeah, or else we don't feel valued as a board.
I'm struggling.
Me too.
I'd like to ask Jaden to speak.
Can I just start?
Absolutely.
So I agree with everything Brian has said so far, in terms of, everything going to council, for recommendation. And I think there's value to that.
Going to the board
Sorry,
before coming to the council.
Before
Right.
going to council.
Me too.
And I'll agree with that. We did have a meeting earlier and discussed that. And I think that set us on the right track, hopefully going forward. The item in question was mainly over a revision to a contract, which for land contract. And so from my point of view, when I did that was, okay, it's just a small revision. I just need this to be, approved on because of the way the Monett regulations and stuff state. So there was not like me trying to not value the approval. I was just trying to get something done quickly so I could get stuff moving forward to where I could present to the advisory board and be like, hey, this is what I was able to accomplish. There wasn't me trying to step over or anything on the advisory board's mentorship there. So I'll state that. And I think going forward, I will stick to this as much as possible. I think also having, maybe emails sent throughout the month, just so I can get more stuff put to council if need be, or at a quicker rate, instead of waiting, a month to 2 months to wait for a decision from the advisory board in that time, because we only meet once a month, which we can discuss at the next advisory board on maybe certain things like that. But other than that, I agree with what Brian said, and I'll state, even though it's probably been said many times, I do value all of their leadership and mentorship, coming here as a very young and not many years under my belt in aviation, so I do appreciate that. Well,
Yeah, Brian, I don't think there's any doubt they will all value the advisory report, and I would certainly like your input on anything that we bring before the council.
All right, thank you. I'd be glad to do it. Our board would be glad to do it.
Yeah, I have no issue with that.
Same here. My door is open.
Okay, any more discussion on this topic? Okay, what's the next item?
Proclamation, Monett's Kiwanis 100-year anniversary.
The
Chair.
discussion regarding annexation.
Oh, I apologize. Discussion regarding annexations by the city of Monett within the Monett Rural Fire Protection District.
This is us paying what we're supposed to, right?
So this is basically, after the research that I've done, reaching out to our former city administrator. Since the last time the city paid back in 2021, we've only had one annexation, and that's the first day paying. He did give 2 options of how you guys can go about to approve that payment to them. Option 1 would be the preferable option. It's a 1 lump sum, and it would be paid after November once we get the numbers from the courthouse on the property taxes. With the building not being constructed yet, that would be the best option, because if you go with option 2, then you're going to be paying yearly, and if you get the building constructed by, say, 2025, and the property taxes are a set amount, each year it's going to go up, so then we're going to end up paying more each year.
Now, what I had, they request incremental, is that correct? I'm seeing here,
If we go with the number 2 option, yes. So each option does have incrementals. So if we go with the option 1, then it's going to be based off the 2025 property tax that we can get from them in November. And then we base it off of that dollar amount in 2025, and each year we add that together. And we pay them the 1 lump sum.
okay, what kind of amounts are we talking here if we do the
We don't know
incremental?
anything until November. This is a discussion to get, because that was brought to me by Greg Carlin. And I wasn't aware of this situation, so I did the research and.
Yeah, it's in our city ordinance. Or no, state statute.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this, an example, if the real estate value is at $425,000, then that, for that year, it comes out to about $900 is what the city pays, is that correct?
That would be correct, and it would be each year that you would base it off of, because the first year would be the 100%, so we'd pay them the full 100%. And then year 27 would be the 80% of that amount of 2025.
All right, so we're not talking about big amounts here.
So,
It probably
not
says
unless you go with option 2 and the building is
a multi-million-dollar
Yeah.
appraised
That's it.
value.
Mhm.
Okay.
So we would have the numbers in November, and then that's, where we can go forward with this. This is just a discussion because it
Yeah,
was brought to me.
we're deciding whether we're going to just pay 1 lump sum amount based on the next assessed value, appraised value, right, appraised and assessed value. Or we just follow the state statute and take the appraised and assessed values each year and pay that amount annually.
So
Property taxes never go down.
Property taxes never go down.
So I think a lump sum is probably a better idea, as my input.
I would agree.
Well, tell me about the state statute again. State statute says,
It's this schedule, right? So the state statute says that in a rural fire
yeah,
district, you take and substitute the year, right? So
Mhm.
whatever the
Okay,
year might
got
be, the appraised value, then that calculates an assessed value for taxation. Based on that amount, the first year, this is just the base state statute, the first year you pay 100% of that amount to the fire district, right? Their portion of the taxes.
okay, but we do have the option per state statute to give them a lump sum, is
We
that
can,
correct?
that's
Yes.
correct. We have the option to
Okay.
just pay lump sum or pay according to the schedule.
Is that
Okay.
5-year schedule?
5 years. That's correct.
It's not a big schedule. And that's, and that would be 2025, that would be the amount. And the percentages, I see, okay. All right, any more discussion? All right, call the roll.
I got a question.
Well, this is the agenda item, it's not to approve, it's just to discuss.
Right.
Okay,
If we're discussing, can I ask a question?
yes.
What do we get in exchange for this one?
This is replacing, okay, so the property was not within city limits.
Correct.
Therefore, they would not have received, the fire district will not receive those tax dollars.
Right.
because it's now being annexed into city limits,
Okay.
right? So for a period of 5 years, the city required by statute to pay that entity the amount of taxes that they would have received had it not been annexed annexed into city limits.
Okay,
So
that's-
it helps them gradually,
Yeah.
through attrition, wither down those revenues that they would have normally received.
Okay, so there's a sunset on it for 5 years.
That is correct.
For the loss, just
Yeah, the schedule is 100% the first year, 80% the second, 60, 40, 20.
And then after that, it's completely the city?
Zero, yes.
Okay, and then in the 5-year period, do they provide services to that area?
They do not.
You just buy them out.
Yep, you're just buying them out. Well said, Mark, thank you.
Actually, as of today, the city's providing services already because it's in the city limit.
Yep,
So,
Because once it's annexed in.
it's annexed in, it's ours.
yeah, City Fire is already providing those services.
That's
So,
Is this on all annexations?
That's correct.
Any annexations that in the past that have come into the city have been done this way also?
That'd be correct, yes.
There's no workaround, because is there not, can you annex land in and then for future development growth to avoid this tax?
That's really hypothetical. I wouldn't say we would annex it to avoid that expense because you're going to pay it. As soon as you annex it, you're going to pay it. So you're not avoiding, by not annexing it, you're avoiding it.
yeah.
I'm ignorant. What property are you talking about?
This is the property on the southeast corner of Lowe's Lane and Highway 60.
Oh, is that for the bank thing?
That is
Yes,
correct.
That's right.
Okay.
That is correct.
I didn't make that connection.
Which, the only way to completely avoid it would annex it before the tax district was formed. And we're past that point now.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
well said, David, but yes.
that's-
And that's not realistic,
Yeah,
right?
it's done.
Yeah.
So this question will come up every time the city does an annexation now, will it?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it has. And the city has paid this out in the past. So,
Okay, any more discussion on this item? Okay, the next city council meeting will be on Thursday, October 10th, at 6 o'clock, and this is our regular city council meeting, second Thursday of the month.
I'm sorry, are we doing the proclamation?
I'm sorry, we're not done with the proclamations. My mistake. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, go ahead.
Proclamation, Monett's Quanah's 100-year anniversary. And you have the proclamations already up.
Yeah. This merely recognizes the 100 years of service to the city of Monett, and particularly Monett's children, by the Kiwanis Club. They focus on children. And all we're doing is recognizing their great service here, and it's not totally, but a lot of times focus on underprivileged children. So all we're doing with this proclamation is thanking them for their service to the city of Monett, and particularly the children.
And recognizing their 100-year anniversary.
Yeah.
Centennial year.
So that's all this is.
Should it be read?
That's the mayor's choice.
Okay.
I'll read one paragraph. This is what's going on. I'm going to paraphrase here. This is helping the children of Monett and around the world. The specific services are Berry County Youth Camp, Boys State, and this is over a 100-year period. They've done a lot of stuff for them, and all we're doing here is recognizing their service for helping the children of Monett. So that's what it's about. Do we have any questions? Okay.
Great organization.
We need to
Congrats.
vote on this one?
No?
Okay.
You
so
just sign it.
No, I just need to sign it.
You've already, yeah.
Yeah, it's already signed. And this proclamation is to the Alexander McNair chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution. And I'm going to paraphrase this one as well. And it's because they perpetuate the memory of ancestors who fought to make our country free and independent. So we're looking back all the way to the Revolution, 1776. That was before I was a teenager. And so by the virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Monett, in this working session, I hereby proclaim that the week of 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week. And this is important. They've asked us to do that. The city's recognizing that. So.
Is that October or September?
September 17th to 23rd. So.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Now the next council meeting.
Next council meeting, regular, second Thursday, school board meeting room, 6 o'clock. And that's on October the
10th.
The 10th.
Correct.
Okay, so that's the next city council meeting. All right. Have any motions?
I'll move that we convene into closed session pursuant to section 610.21 through 610.022 for the purpose of discussing real estate and personnel. I would ask for the council, city clerk, HR director Aaron Graham, airport manager Jaden Cooper,
And Steve.
and Steve Etcher, thank you, and Steve Etcher, economic development consultant, to remain.
Any of the airport board?
No, no, no.
No? Okay.
All right now. Okay, we have a second.
I'll second.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Radyberg,
Yes.
Commissioner Darren Indovina,
Aye.
Commissioner Ken Yesmer.
Aye.
Okay, we'll take about 10